Welcome to Biblical Theology Today as we continue our series on Ask It Basket questions. Thought today's question was really interesting. Student leader asked the question, thoughts on head coverings, why or why not? So this is an interesting question because I have to admit, when I come to this passage, I'm a little baffled as to exactly what the passage is meaning to teach. I want to be under Scripture and not over Scripture. I have friends whom I respect spiritually who believe that this is a normative practice, and even some friends of mine feel like it's a normal practice perpetually for women to have head coverings. And the vast majority of Christians I associate with would come down and say, well, no, this isn't a practice that we need to be concerned about. Of course, in today's culture, where you come down on an issue like this, there's theology that's built upon. If you say this is a cultural practice that we don't need to be worried about today, well, what about other things Scripture says? Can we dispense with those things? And so this question is interesting to me for those reasons, and particularly the why or why not. And the question comes from this passage in 1 Corinthians 11. And if you just seek to read through this passage in Greek, there are a lot of things that are difficult in terms of the grammar and translation. You have things like symbol of authority, according to her head, against her head, the, the image and being the image and glory of God. Woman is the glory of man. The whole issue is man here, man or husband. And so there are a lot of things going on here, and the whole idea of covering up because of the angels. And you come to a passage like this and you think, my goodness, there are 18 things here that I would like to better understand, and I don't really know exactly what to do with them all. So my advice is, I'm still in the process of studying this passage, and I'm, as always, put together kind of a empowerment sheet, helping other people think through this issue. And there's, a covering, uncovered in regard to her head. Christ is the kephale of every andros, and the aner, the man is head of the woman, and the head of the Christ is God. This phrase, a woman ought to have exousion, epites, kephales, all of that is difficult. This word veil doesn't appear, at least as far as I can tell, in the text, but many of the church fathers believe it's talking about some kind of veil. And some writers even talk about this Roman garment, peplum, might be related here. I think this passage, and this is just the very basic position to start with. This passage has something to do with the meta-narrative of Scripture, that Paul is coming to the meta-narrative and he's reading the story of creation. He appeals to creation, and that issue, God's intent of creating male and female, that it has something to do with the theology of the entire Bible, that there's a meta-narrative principle there. And I feel confident when I look at Paul that he's doing that when he comes to the Adam and Eve story. He believes it's an actual, factual, historic event, but he also believes that there's symbolism, foreshadowing, and that's why in, I think it's Ephesians 5, he quotes for this cause, man will leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, be joined to his wife. And he's very free to say, I'm telling you, that's about Christ and the church. So it's clear he's coming to the text and seeing some kind of God-intended design in the passages and in the details of the passage. And he wants to address this issue of head coverings in light of those. I like what one person said, and I'll get to that below, that we live in a world where there are Christians who think, yes, this is something that I believe all Christians should do, and others who say no, it's something that was cultural. And I think there we're on very good ground if we come to Paul in Romans 13, maybe 14, where he talks about meat sacrificed to idols. And he says, be convinced in your own mind, but don't try to fix somebody else's theology. I think that's pretty good here. This is a debated passage, as we're going to see. And on debated passages, we should allow that good Christians can disagree. I do like Calvin's quote here. For as the man honors has by showing his liberty, so the woman by showing her subjection. Calvin is so good at boiling things down to like a sentence we can remember. There is something in the design of God where men get to play certain roles, women play certain roles, that they're roles designed by God in the drama of all of history, and that we should be cognizant of that and be willing to let that play out in our lives. I will just say that in terms of the Greek issues, this authority upon the head and covering upon the head, very good lexicographers will point out that there's great debate about exactly what that means. We've got this older work and then a more recent one. Newman, his concise dictionary, he says perhaps is a symbol. And whenever you see scholars, good scholars, saying things like perhaps, we probably should take notice and realize, hey, this might not be as crystal clear as some people are saying. One of the things I like to do when I really get confused about something is to look for help from other people. And I did find, and I may be able to pull this up if this link will work,
Should
a YouTube video, Steve Lawson on head coverings, and I felt like it was just an incredible resource. So you might just type in Steve Lawson in YouTube, and this first one was a short little clip, and then I found the fuller one there. He had a lot of things helpful to say. I really liked it. I commend it to you. Martin Lloyd-Jones had a short clip that was very interesting. Sproul, a couple of times in panel discussions, he argues for his view. And then Wretched Radio even talked about some of the issues that people have kind of extrapolated from this passage. I did find a quote from Calvin that was helpful, and I did find an article by Philip Petrovich, and this is in Westminster Theological Journal, 1 Corinthians 11, 2 through 16. And Westminster Theological Journal is a great resource. And this scholar has summarized for us the incredible diversity of opinions. And I really appreciated this statement. He starts off that 1 Corinthians 11, 2 through 16 is one of the most obscure passages in Paul's letters. So whenever you get scholars saying that, it would probably do well to take notice of that. Steve Lawson said he was asked, what's the most difficult passage to preach on in terms of exegetical preaching, and he said, well, I don't know, but probably 1 Corinthians 11 is right up there, and I would echo that just in terms of researching what it says. I like what Petrovich includes, and he finds this quote from John Chrysostom, where Chrysostom says it's clear from the way Paul begins this passage that he'd already exhorted them about these matters while he was with them. Otherwise, when he has said nothing about this earlier in the letter but dealt with other problems, does he suddenly say, I commend you because you remember me in everything and maintain traditions even as I have delivered them to you. And of course, what was clear to the church then is less clear to us, and so we probably should show a little caution here. And you can see that a lot of people have weighed in on this. Origen, Chrysostom, Tertullian, Augustine, the Venerable Bede. That lets me know that there are significant issues here. And I want to say, and I appreciate Steve Lawson saying this, that he's someone under authority, but he doesn't know exactly what to do with this. And I think I would echo that. You can see early church fathers, Theodoret. He talks about some different viewpoints. Garland has a recent commentary, and he goes through summarizing many suggestions on this. Richard Pratt, a very fine scholar, points out that even the idiom in antiquity can be interesting when you look at what those passages imply for our usage. Thistleton is a great scholar, and he makes some helpful points. Charles Hodge, there was a reason that Princeton had such a great reputation, and why so many fantastic people were trained there. He, for a long while I was doing this, he had the clearest explanation. McClintock and Strong, a good older resource, makes some of the same points. One of the points that Pratt made that I felt was really interesting is that this idea, many artifacts recovered from Corinth of Paul's day, including figurines, statues, coins, present women without veils or head coverings. And so the question, very common to say, oh, well, that's something, that prostitutes did. But I don't know, is the evidence there for that? And I have to admit, I'm uncertain. H.D.M. Spence in the Pulpit commentary, I found that he's a guy who will always tell me some things I had not thought about, and I think a lot of his resources are free online. I think I liked it so much I ended up buying it in Logos, but he had some interesting things. Of course, John Gill, he's one of my go-to guys. I feel like I can do some things with Logos, and I'll look at John Gill, and often he will have done the same thing better, and he doesn't have electronic resources. He just had books and careful study. Matthew Poole had some interesting things to say as well. So at the end of the day, when I come to this question, what about head coverings? I have to say it's something that I'm still studying. I did find it interesting that Calvin talked about putting a covering back on, and I was confused about that until I realized that in Central Europe in the winter, you may have been dealing with necessity there, and it kind of made me step back and think, well, exactly how should I think through all this? Would an Eskimo who converts to Christianity, who preached with his head covered, would that be dishonoring God, or is God ready to say, well, in that person's situation may not be the same as Corinth? And so I think it's a really good question. I wish I had a better answer for it. I do think that we can show humility to each other and to follow Paul's good advice. Let your opinion be yours, be convinced of it, and if your neighbor comes down on a different place, then God will sort that out. And clearly, and I think Lawson makes this point, it's a very good point, all scripture is inspired by God, and so it's not like this passage doesn't have something really good to tell us. I just have to admit I'm still trying to figure out exactly what that might be. Be interested to see in the comments what you think, and as always, I look forward to talking to you next time.